This is the Neurosurgery Podcast.
Welcome to this special edition of Neurosurgery Podcast. In honor of August, which is Neurosurgery Awareness Month, we have me, Joshua Rosenow, as your guest host, interviewing Dr. Cathy Mazzola. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Mazzola to the Neurosurgery Podcast. Thank you for taking your time and joining us for this recording to raise awareness, in this case, about advocacy and being involved in advocacy in neurosurgery. How you doing?
Very good, Josh. Happy to be here.
That's
I
awesome. So
always
let's
love
start.
to talk about advocacy.
Yeah. So let's start talking about how you got there. So tell me a little bit about your training, like how you actually found neurosurgery and specifically pediatric neurosurgery.
Okay, very good. So I've always been interested in taking care of children in medical school. In my pediatric rotation, I had the opportunity to meet a very important woman who was a surgeon. Her name was Dr. Anita Falla. And the first time I met her, she asked me if I knew how to scrub. I actually thought she wanted me to scrub her instruments. And I told her, well, I know how to scrub pots and pans. And she laughed, brought me to the OR, taught me how to scrub. And that was my first case. So then I became interested in pediatric surgery. And it was Dr. Robert Heery when I was a third year medical student. He was the chief resident of neurosurgery at Rutgers in Newark. And he asked me to come observe brain tumor surgery. And from then on, I was all about neurosurgery and pediatric neurosurgery. So that's how I became interested.
So what was your initial entry into advocacy and neurosurgery? Was it during training? Was it after training?
So initially in my early residency, I became involved with the Council of Interns and Residents, which is like a union for residents, and it's very broad. It represents pediatric residents, surgical residents, neurosurgery residents. And I became the president of the Council of Interns and Residents at the Rutgers Medical School. And early in my residency, through mentorship by my chair, Dr. Peter Carmel, he asked me to get involved in the Congress of Neurological Surgeons. So I became involved with the CNS very early on in my residency. And as such, I became involved in many of the committees for the Congress. And it was Dr. Hunt Bajer who called me one day and asked me to write a white paper about residency work hours. And I just became very involved in the Congress. Later on, when I did my pediatric neurosurgery fellowship, David Adelson, who was one of my attendings in Pittsburgh, asked me to be the CNS representative to the CSNS. And honestly, I had not even heard about the CSNS. And then I found out that the CSNS, or the Council of State Neurosurgical Societies, is actually the medical, legal, and socioeconomic joint section of the AANS and the CNS. The name kind of makes it a little bit more mysterious, but it's really a joint section.
So when you were involved with CIR, and I think that's important because I was a CIR resident when I was a resident, and also I think a lot of our residents are being swept up in the progressive resident unionization. What kind of issues did you fight for on behalf of all the residents at the medical center? And was there a lot of push-pull between, say, the surgical-ish residents and the more medical-ish residents, like and I should say also to note that Peter Carmel, your mentor who helped get you into this, was not only a prominent pediatric neurosurgeon, but he also was the president of the AMA at one point. So he was a guy that certainly knew about getting involved in advocacy as neurosurgery.
Right. Well, the two hot button issues for the CIR when I was a resident was the way residents were being taxed. So we were being taxed on our pay as if we were regular employees, But in reality, we were also students. And so the categorization of resident pay for tax purposes was a hot issue. And the other issue was work hours, right? Because I mean, you probably remember the time when we were working 120 to 140 hours a week. You would come in on a Friday morning at 6 a.m. and you would leave the hospital Monday night, sometimes at 8 p.m., and come back on Tuesday like nothing happens. I mean, and we trained with long residency hours. So when the resident work hour week was challenged, and now we have the 80-hour work week for residents, right? Many neurosurgery residents and many surgeons were concerned that the less hours the residents work would give them less opportunities to learn. So that was very important. I mean, yeah, we were also concerned about the resident who's over fatigued, but it also did cut back somewhat on the opportunities for residents.
Was there any kind of push pull between the constituent of like the surgical residents and the medical residents? Because we see that in the AMA now at times, as we have sometimes different priorities. Did you
No,
have to manage that?
not so much in the residency field. No, I feel it's more of a concern now that I'm an attending. I just feel that surgeons sometimes have goals and issues that the non-surgical physicians don't understand, right? So I think it's more apparent now as an attending than it was when I was a resident. Yeah.
So, what initially motivated you to pursue things like the CNS and then eventually the CSNS?
Right. So
Right, because
for
it's
me,
not paid.
no, no. And to me, this is all about volunteerism, right? Because when you volunteer to serve on a committee, you are giving your time, your knowledge, your expertise for free to our parent organizations. But that's what advocacy is really all about, right? Having a voice and having a seat at the table. And it was through these committees of the Congress of Neurological Surgeons, and then later on, the American Association of Neurological Surgeons and the CSNS. Just by being there and having a seat at the table, you can use your voice to educate people about what the hot issues are in neurosurgery, such as access to care for our patients, such as fair reimbursement for the long hours of training and operating that we put in every single day. And I give of my time and I give of my experience and expertise because it matters to me. And honestly, I wish more neurosurgeons would be interested in becoming advocates for our profession and for our patients.
So you've been extremely involved in the CSNS, and in fact, you're currently chair right now. What motivated you to stick with that organization for this long and really go through the committee leadership roles and then into the officer roles all the way up to chair? Why stick with that of all opportunities for as many years as you did? What about that really got you?
Right. Well, the CSNS is unique because they are a grassroots organization. And the CSNS, we meet for 2 days before our annual meetings. So we typically meet in the fall and in the spring before the CNS and before the AANS. And it's the only place where neurosurgeons from all across the country who are representing their state neurosurgical societies come together and discuss issues that are either state-based or nationally based. And representatives from our parent organizations are there in attendance. And we present and discuss resolutions from the various state representatives. And when you get up to that microphone and you introduce yourself and speak, you have the president of the AANS there. You have the president of the CNS there. And you have sometimes leaders from the ABNS, the American Board of Neurological Surgeons there, or the Senior Society. And it is together, when we come together as organized neurosurgery, our voice is amplified. And all of these organizations come together. And through the advocacy work that we do at the CSNS, together with our Washington committee, I mean, the work that we do is amazing. And from 2002, I have not missed a single CSNS meeting. I will continue to go to the CSNS meetings. I became so interested in advocacy in August of 2022. I started law school and I just graduated in December of 25. So yes, I'm super interested in advocacy.
That's amazing. So, what do you hope to accomplish further in advocacy with your law degree?
So I obviously am very interested in healthcare law, and I'm interested in advocating for patients to increase access to care. Very often, insurance companies will exclude neurosurgeons or neurosurgery groups and have a very limited option available to patients. And patients will not have access to all the neurosurgeons in their state simply because one insurance company is excluding a specific group of neurosurgeons. That's limiting access to care. Also, many insurance companies will prohibit or prevent or delay access to care because they won't authorize the imaging studies we recommend or the surgeries we recommend, right? You're a neurosurgeon, you've trained for decades, you see a patient who you know would benefit from an epilepsy surgery, and they are not, the insurance company may in some cases deny or not allow that patient to get an epilepsy protocoled MRI, right? And yes, you can appeal it. It may take weeks, it may add another month or two. Eventually, the neurosurgeon usually wins out, but access to care is so important to patients. So I want to fight for access to care. And I also want to help for physician rights. You know, very often insurance companies will audit a neurosurgical group simply because many of our office visits are level 5 office visits. Even if your documentation is perfect, you could be audited, right? Insurance companies do clawbacks to insurance groups, to physician groups or physician practices. So I want to help represent physicians and patients.
That's wonderful. Do you have any advocacy roles at the hospital level or at the local or state level in New Jersey?
Right. So I've served on the medical executive committee at Morristown Medical Center, which is where I'm primarily based. I am also on the board for the Medical Society of New Jersey because I am the acting chair for the Morris County Medical Society. So I am active in the hospital at the county level and also at the state level. So all of this. And I wish, I'm always encouraging more physicians to join the county medical society, the state medical society, because it's our combined voice in government that carries, right? If it's just one single physician complaining about a certain issue, um, a state representative might not actually listen to that one physician. But when you have the state medical society telling, a legislature that this is a big issue, they're more likely to listen.
I'm sure it must be difficult as someone who runs a busy pediatric practice to find time for all of this. How do you get the time away to do all this, and when does this all occur?
Right. So I think neurosurgeons, we're typically and generally very gifted and talented people, and we do very well with multitasking and time management. So I am hyper organized and my OCD shines brightly. And I make the time for organizations and issues that are important for me. And that's my guiding karma.
And I gather you have partners who kind of cover when you're at meetings or doing things or
Yeah.
handling all this advocacy?
Yeah. When I started my practice, Josh, in 2007, it was a nurse, a biller, a secretary, and me. And that was in 2007. And I now have about 110 employees. We have 6 offices. And I hate the word providers. So we probably have about 12 physicians and 12 nurse practitioners in the practice. So the practice has grown. I've sold 30% of the practice to the head pediatric neurologist, and we just did another practice valuation, and I'm selling another 10%. So, my dream is that New Jersey Pediatric Neuroscience Institute, grows as a multidisciplinary practice for children with neurosurgical, neurological, developmental problems in New Jersey.
It's quite amazing how that's grown in what seems like a short period of time from just you to all of that while you're doing all of this. Um, what would you tell a young person starting out who's just, say in training now or coming out of training and is kind of confused by all the letters and things with all the societies and opportunities out there? Like, how would you tell them to take their first steps and to dip their toe in the water?
Right. So for young medical students and residents and even young attendings, the Congress of Neurological Surgery is a great place to start. Before you go to the meeting, look on the website, see what committees are listed. If you're interested, email almost anyone in the CNS and you will get a response. And you can volunteer to serve on a committee. When I was younger, I was nervous about going into a room and introducing myself and offering to help. And I was shocked and pleasantly surprised when the chair of the committee would happily accept my work and my service. And in many of those situations, before you knew it, I would be the vice chair of the committee or the chair of the committee. So I've been on so many CNS committees and also CSNS committees. It's just all you have to do is be there and volunteer. People are happy to have you there.
I'm sure it's not all success though. I mean, you make this sound like you just go and do things and we have all these victories. What are some of the more frustrating aspects or of advocacy for you?
So it's difficult when you know something and you're certain about something and you're advocating for something and you're being told that what you're advocating for is not important or it's not really an issue. So there were times, especially during COVID, when I was advocating for physicians in my own hospital. And not only did I feel that my voice wasn't being heard, but I did feel that the administration was kind of, they didn't actually believe the issues that we were talking about. So they were kind of dismissive. And it was something that we were seeing as patients and that, we saw with our patients and we saw in the hospital and we wanted certain things to happen. And I don't feel that the administration really hurt us. But remember, most of the administrators, they are trained in business. They are not there in the unit, in the emergency room, in the operating room. So they don't see the issues. So even if you feel like you're not being heard, your voice is being heard, but you have to really advocate strongly for your position.
Have you done advocacy directly where you've gone to either state legislators, you were saying some involvement with the Medical Society in New Jersey or with the Washington Committee or CSNS? Have you done advocacy where you've actually gone and sat down with legislators either at the local state level or at the federal level and brought these issues right to their front door?
Yes.
And how have
So
they reacted when you come in as a neurosurgeon?
yeah. So, for example, I was at the Medical Society of New Jersey meeting in 2024. And the issue for me at that time, in February of 2024, right, United Healthcare had unfortunately, a hack in the Change Healthcare platform. And Change Healthcare was acting as a billing and collections, almost like a clearinghouse online. So many physicians and hospitals would submit their bills. It would go to the United Healthcare, Change Healthcare portal, and then the claims would be scrubbed and sent out to Aetna, Blue Cross, Cigna. So when Change Healthcare was hacked for about 2 months, from the end of February to the beginning of maybe May even, many physicians and hospitals and practices were not able to submit or receive bills from insurance companies. And many practices were in financial trouble. And many practices and physicians took loans from another United Healthcare subsidiary called Optum Bank. And we took the loans, and then Optum wanted to be repaid as soon as Change Healthcare started working again. But we had lost millions of dollars. We could not repay the loans immediately. And then they started clawing back payments. So I received a number of threatening emails. I responded to each one asking for more time. The clawback started. And then I called a friend of mine, Gretchen Morganson, who was a reporter, and I ended up being on the nightly news. But at the MSNJ meeting, we had several New Jersey politicians, and the current president-elect of the AMA was there. And I told her about the issues. She had not heard about these United Healthcare clawbacks, and they heard our concerns, and they acted on it. And very soon thereafter, United Healthcare stopped the clawbacks.
So I know it seems we're starting to get a little short on time, but it seems from talking to you that you can be everywhere and do everything all at once. Are there any avenues for advocacy that either you started and decided they weren't for you, or something that was offered to you that you decided not to pursue?
So it's believe it or not, Josh, it's a little hard for me to speak in public in front of large groups of people. I do get very nervous. So I really have to push myself to stand up in front of a huge group of people because I do get nervous. So I've learned I have to prepare really well. And sometimes just having the PowerPoint, having the notes helps me get through it so that I don't get so nervous when I'm speaking in public.
Any final thoughts as we wind down regarding either motivational things for folks out there that might be listening to this and have now been energized by what we've talked about, or words of caution?
Right. So the CSNS, although, when we vote on our resolutions, you have to be a delegate from your state. Anyone can attend a CSNS session. And I would encourage anyone who's interested to come and sit in and ask questions and volunteer and get involved because it's such a great organization, as are our parent organizations as well.
Well, thank you for joining us for this special podcast, Cathy. It is Neurosurgery Awareness Month, and I think raising awareness about this aspect of neurosurgery, that's something that's outside the operating room and outside the clinic, but I think makes a large difference in how we deliver care to patients and what care we can deliver patients. Thank you for coming on and describing this and talking about it tonight.
Thanks, Josh, and thanks for all the work that you do for the CSNS and for our parent organizations. And can I throw in a short plug? So at the CNS in the fall, there is actually going to be a symposium called the Advocate Surgeon, and Jeremy Amps and Anand Veeravagu have organized this, and it's Saturday, October 31st, and they're going to have some great speakers. Steve Kalkanis is going to be speaking about the surgeon executive Russ Lanzer is going to be talking about pathways to national leadership in neurosurgery. Seppi Amin Hanjani will be speaking about leading with purpose. Anne Stroink, Brian Nahad, Bharat Gudakanda, Chris Kimmel. You will be speaking, Josh, about access to care. And Alex Kalesi will be talking about the great work that he does with the Washington Committee. Clemens Shermer, Crystal Tomei, who's also another Dr. Peter Carmel disciple, and Jennifer Sweet and Stavropula Chamakaris. So we're going to have a great faculty for that symposium. So if you are interested in advocacy, sign up for that symposium at the Congress.
And there you have it. I'll be there, apparently.
Yes, you will.
All right. On that note, we're going to sign off. Thank you, everyone out there in podcast land, for joining us. And we look forward to welcoming you on future episodes of the podcast.
Thanks, Josh. Have a great night, everyone.
Have a great night.
Bye.